The Software Leaders Uncensored podcast, where tech leaders grow beyond the code.
You're listening to Software Leaders Uncensored, where software leadership gets real, uncut, and unfiltered. I'm your host, Steve Taplin. I'm a guy that started 30 companies. I failed at 20 of them and built 10 that were clearly on the win mark. And every one of them, the common theme I've always had to build a successful software company is to have the right custom software. Today, I help other leaders do the same through Sonatify. We are a custom software development shop bringing senior bilingual engineers from Latin America who work in U.S. time zones that actually deliver. On this podcast, I focus on sitting down with the sharpest minds in software, CTOs, founders, architects, and operators to unpack what's working, what's broken, and how to build for real. No fluff, no filters. Let's get into it. My guest today is Matthew Mixan out of Omaha, Nebraska, who is the CTO of Decision Logic. Matthew is a guy who knows what it takes to scale SaaS platforms while fighting uphill battles. Let's get into it. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hi, good to be here. Thank you.
Please, if you would, give the listeners a brief overview of your career coming up to your current role as CTO at your current company.
Sure, you got it. Yeah, my career pretty much started late 90s, was doing computer science here in Omaha and trying to find where I wanted to go with things. Working for Hyatt hotels, I was doing a lot of networking and help desk type things, just trying to find where I wanted to go in IT. That was kind of always my jam. Moved definitely more into like the programming side of things, and then ended up landing a job in the early thousands with a local contracting group, doing a lot of government contracts and stuff there. I kind of quickly moved into some tech lead roles and things along that line as I was gaining experience. Eventually that led to another company here locally to do other software contracting things, which then led to the current company, Decision Logic, which became acquired by that company. And basically they were trying to grow that business and scale things up. And so I moved over and became CTO in that group, and that's where I am today.
Fantastic. So you started your career in IT, you tried out different things. What clicked for you that made software your thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. My dad has always been like a woodworking guy. He's a builder. He likes to build things. And I think I picked up that, but I don't like wood. That's never been my jam. But I definitely like building things. And software has been one of those that clicks for me, that how can I emulate or build simulate a problem or build a solution to a problem quickly. And I think software has just always allowed that really fast iteration, execution on things, quick feedback, all those kind of things that something more like material sciences or engineering and things like that don't allow. So it's always just clicked from that perspective.
Well put, and I couldn't agree with you more. As every company's out there trying to differentiate themselves, the secret is really around having good custom user experiences that often aren't off just getting industry-related software.
Yep.
So I am with you. Let's talk about your company, Decision Logic. It's a SaaS platform to help restaurants operate and optimize their businesses. Tell us more.
Yeah, running a restaurant, especially in today's world, post-COVID, it's definitely a job. And anyone from the managers who are in the restaurant doing the day-to-day and working with guests and keeping things running, all the way up to the C-level folks who are trying to, make the entire business profitable, understand where they can optimize and make changes at the entire organization level. Our software helps all the way up and down. So from I need to take inventory and place orders so I get food on time, all the way up to how can I look at which groups or which stores within my organization are following like recipes to the letter or doing things different, or they're wasting items, or they're not ordering on time. It's all the way up and down the chain. Basically, the software allows them basically to see that information.
So what problem is Decision Logic solving in the restaurant world better than others?
Sure. Yeah. What we try to do is really focus on the controllables. So things like how much a steak is going to cost you from the vendor. You can't really control that because they're going to change their prices and such. But what you can control.
Wait a minute, you've already programmed in all the crazy tariffs that are going on right now that are changing daily?
Oh, tariffs. Yeah.
Man, you guys are quick.
It's going to be an interesting couple of months for sure as all this is changing. But yeah, so the things you can control are things like, do you have the right amount of people in the restaurant? If you are, for example, not hitting the amount of sales for the day that you're going to hit in the restaurant, maybe you should let people go home early because they've asked for time off and things along those lines. So the software is really about bringing all this disparate information together from, again, the vendors you're getting food from to the point of sales that are actually plugging in the checks and getting the information, payment processing, all this stuff, and giving you a full picture and helping to make recommendations on what you should do in response to those things. So I think we do that part really well, and we do it in a way we were really ahead of the business, or like the pretty much the whole market when it came to like the mobile side of things. We were pushing hard on that in the early or the mid like 2010s, like 2014 era. That was new, and that was like really cool that we were ahead, and now kind of all of our competition has that. And so now we're trying to find the next big thing on the mobile front and things along that lines. Decision Logic as a company was really far ahead. The company was formed in the late 1990s, and they were like super far ahead of the competition there. So it's been a little bit of a leapfrogging. We build a thing, people catch up. We build a thing, people catch up. They build a thing, we catch up. And it's definitely been an interesting journey for sure over the last like 8 years or so, 9 years.
I grew up working in restaurants, from being a waiter to a bartender, and I always thought that's the route I wanted to go. And every owner of every restaurant I worked for always tried to talk me out of it. And just how the ups and downs in the restaurant industry, the challenges of making it through the different trends and what's going on. So it sounds like Decision Logic provides a very good tool to help restaurants manage better, which is, everyone talked me out of it. So I've never owned a restaurant or bar, and I'm pretty glad on that. Of my 30 businesses, 20 losses and 10 wins, no restaurants or bars.
Yeah, I get it. I did my stint at Little Caesars back in the day, and it was fine. It was a high school job type of thing, but yeah, the problems I like to solve definitely. I like to be in the office. I like to write the code and see the fast results and not have to try things over long periods of time. Limited time offers that they'll roll out when they might succeed or fail, but it might take 2 quarters, 3 quarters to figure out, is it actually impacting the way they want. It's definitely a different dynamic for sure, different vertical.
Now, you guys have some AI agent initiatives that you're doing. Tell us what you're building and why now.
Sure. And the why now, right, is really just everything in the technology sector right now is pushing towards that. So we've been looking for about probably 8 or 9 months, I think, so far on just R&D and which platform we want to do, and different prototypes that we've been building there. We're trying to find the right offering for what our clients are trying to do with the software, and again, like what could we provide from a value proposition standpoint with that. I'm a big fan of not being the hammer looking for a nail. AI, when it came out, when it really started getting big, everybody was just like, we got to throw AI in all the things. And my approach is very much what problem can AI solve for us? If we can solve it with something we already have today, why AI? We wouldn't need it if we could just do it, with something else.
Well, Matthew, I actually like to laugh that if we were to put 10 tech leaders in a room and ask them what AI is, we would get 10 different answers.
100%. I agree. And even that, like that, what is AI? Because I think a lot of people today, they hear AI and they're really thinking like an LLM, right? It's a chatbot, it's a thing, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's the veneer on top. Like my schooling was in real AI, was back in AI back in the 90s, pre-LLMs as they are today, but more neural networks and genetic algorithms and things like that. So I like to apply that where it makes sense. And so if we're doing things like forecasting models and things like that, great, we can use regression models and things along those lines. But the LLM stuff definitely has changed the game. I mean, so we're trying to find what's the right offering for, maybe you're in Decision Logic and the agents are providing you more of that real-time feedback of like, you should be doing this, or instead of having to read a wall of text, it's, you ask the chatbot something and it gives you a summary of what the page is trying to say and things along that line. So and that's what we're diving into.
So tell me, let's switch gears. Tell me about your engineering team today. How many engineers do you have? Where are they located? How do you have your team structured? I know everybody, all the listeners always like to understand how their peers are doing things.
Yeah, we are currently around 20 or so engineers on our team. We have typically a few teams of 4 to 6, and it kind of varies over time. We actually have a unique relationship with a local software consulting company called Azure. And that's the one, they had bought Decision Logic wholly back in 2014 or so.
Okay.
And that's how I became part of it. I was an engineer on the Azure company doing other projects. And in 2016, that's when the president at the time was like, do you want this opportunity to come over here and help this group? It'll be more of a long-term type thing, not just, a 6-month engagement. I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. So that's what led me to Decision Logic. So the reason I bring it up, we have this interesting relationship where we can flex people on and say, hey, we want to do this big push. So we bring on a few engineers for 6 months, just like any other consulting gig, but we're in the same building. So it's really easy. And we have a lot of engineers that kind of move back and forth and we get to share stuff. So yeah, it's about 20 or so. 90% are located in Omaha, Nebraska. We have a few that are remote, and yeah, that was pre-COVID. We just kind of were always that way. We liked the, a flexibility of people being able to work remote if they need to. COVID definitely, changed some things for a lot of groups there, but for the most part, we stayed about the same.
And tell me about your approach to how you divvy up your software teams, how you manage them.
Sure. Yeah, we try to break it up less by like technical vertical and more accountability to what we're trying to get out of the group. So we have more of like a maintenance type group or integrations group,
Okay.
and then more of like the feature roadmap forward leaning group over here. Both of our groups, and when we flex on other people, they're all doing innovation to some level. So it's not like we have an R&D group that only does the cool stuff. All the groups are kind of doing all the things. And yeah, so we'll do Scrum on some of them that, makes sense for them to have more of a planned out sprints and longer term objectives. And other groups will do things like Kanban if they need to do more reactive, and we're kind of reevaluating our priorities as things change there. So for the most part, I mean, it's nothing earth shattering. It's just kind of what we're doing there.
Gotcha. Well, I like that sometimes we see people too locked into certain methodologies, or you have to do it. One joke, what I've learned from doing it wrong enough, long enough, figuring out how to do it right,
Yeah.
is that, it depends on the project, the team, what's going on, whether a more structured agile or Kanban approach should be used. And so I very much agree with you. And I sometimes when engineering leaders of larger companies are programmed to their corporate way of saying, no, that's the only way of doing it. And that's why this is Software Leaders Uncensored, of talking about what makes sense and what doesn't.
Yeah.
When you're hiring engineers, what's like one non-negotiable skill they must have?
That's a great question. Honestly, for me, like the communication aspect of it, like you could be the best coder in the world, but if you can't communicate outwards, either the problems you're having, the blockers you're having, things like that, or vice versa, you can't read and understand the intent of the ticket, the requirements of whatever. If you can write a ton of code fast, that doesn't solve the problem that I'm looking for. Like our teams are very high communication. We move very fast because everybody, I think, is well tuned to like being able to do that, to communicate at different levels and communicate effectively at different levels. So, hey, we're in a room and we're early on and we're just talking architecture and ideas. We can talk fast at that level, and then we get into the weeds and maybe there's an urgent ticket and we're doing something at a different level. Our teams can basically do that and function that way because that's what we've really been pressing and that's what we've been hiring for.
Gotcha. Wow. So 90% of your engineers are on site with you in Omaha, Nebraska. What about the other 10%? How do you keep them engaged?
Oh, we've tried some things. Let's see. So we had at one point, our chief architect, who's out of the Pacific Northwest, he was on a big, huge 70-inch TV on Zoom for 8 hours a day behind us, which was that did not work well. That was one. That was one attempt.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was a little. I've seen the things like the iPads on a Segway moving around. We haven't tried that yet, but no, for the most part, it's Slack has made everything so much closer and easier to get to. We have quick Zoom rooms people can pop into. So just technology from that perspective has really bridged that gap of hey, we need to get on. So we have predefined rooms when there's like, hey, there's a thing people need to jump on. There's no question about where to go. It's just exactly where to go. Everybody has the links. You just jump in, talk about it, just like you'd walk over to somebody's desk, basically.
Gotcha. Talk about the tech stack you guys are currently using and why.
Sure. We are in the middle, or kind of like in a cloud hybrid situation right now. We still do some on-premise stuff. We have a lot of things in the cloud. We're primarily Microsoft, so we do a lot of things with Azure. I'm kind of an AWS fanboy personally, like a lot of side projects at home. I do a lot of AWS stuff, but Azure is really good from the perspective of what we need for the enterprise solution. So everything from just serverless things, functions, all the good things we need to do from the integration standpoint are all cloud-based. We'll do a lot of things with, let's say, data crunching and more of that stuff with our on-premise solution because we have the hardware to be able to do those things. So it's kind of a mix. It's a cloud hybrid at this point. We're still trying to figure out Kind of do we go all the way into the cloud? Do we stay in this hybrid situation? From a cost perspective, hybrid is really good as well. So there's a lot of cool things we're doing there. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Front end wise, JavaScript, kind of normal like everybody's doing today. It's a very typical front end API database type stack.
Gotcha. Now you made a comment, you have side projects you do. So are you a hands-on coder today?
Day to day in the office, it's pretty rare. I'm pretty much in meetings nonstop, it feels like. So
I understand.
I try not to pick up tickets from the sprint team or anything like that because I feel like I become a blocker for them sometimes. But there's definitely like the occasional something's coming up and I'm the first one not first one. I'm very quick to pull up the ticket, look at it, dive into the code. It's probably somewhere like right in here and, kind of shoot that over the engineers. Like, let's look in here. This is probably where it is. Because coding for 25 years or whatever it is now, you kind of get a feel for it's probably something like this, and as we move away from things like race conditions and stuff, because moving more single threaded land, a lot of my old stuff is kind of falling off, but you don't really ever lose it feels like. So yeah.
Well, and I've had varying opinions from different CTOs that have said they have to still do some on-hands coding, even if it's side projects at nights and weekends, to keep their skills sharp and make sure they can always be the right leader for their team. What's your take on that? Agree, disagree?
I love that. I totally agree. It's the reason I do the side projects is I have kind of three typical like projects I'll do. There's like the RPG game, Warcraft style type thing that I'll work on. There's like a clicker type game, just real basic ideas like that. And so when the new whatever, like when Next.js came up, I was like, ooh, that solves a lot of really interesting problems. I just build one of my typical things in that stack and okay, cool. And then Vue.js and let's compare the two. What's good and what's not. And I need Redux to do this, but Vue allows me to not have to use Redux because it's already kind of in there. And those are the kind of things I like to get smart about. A good example was we were trying to do like more client-side caching and things along that line. I'd already been doing a lot of stuff with some off-the-shelf libraries to do caching. So when the team started hitting that, I was like, by the way, like I already got examples of all of this stuff in practice I can bring in. And so from that perspective, I totally agree. I'm also a big fan right now of single table design in things like Dynamo and other document databases.
Okay.
And I'm trying to find, again, try not to be a hammer looking for a nail, but I think there's places that could be applicable in our stack, especially as we look at some new future-leaning features and stuff like that, hey, it doesn't always have to be relational. And if you need to be relational, you can do relationships in Dynamo, whatever documentation you want to use. So yeah, I like playing, but putting myself in the middle of the mix in the sprint is sometimes a little rough on the team, I think. So I try not to do that.
Gotcha. Now, thank you for your perspective on that. And so before the show today, you shared with me an interesting story, how you were looking at potentially building your own SaaS company, your own SaaS product, and how things lined up for you. Please tell that story. I love it.
Yeah. Again, working for Azure, which is a really, really great consulting company here in Omaha, I was getting to play with lots of different projects from government things to drone mission management, a couple commercial projects and things like that. But back in my mind was always, this is great, but I really want to have my hands around all the things. And as a contractor, you're kind of locked into what the client wants to do. And I think we pride ourselves at Aperture of like trying to push the edge and trying to push the clients of like, I know you're saying you want this, but like, this is a really interesting way of doing it that's different. Are you open to that idea? And so as we were doing that, I found myself, well, if I have my own thing, I get to make the decisions, right? And it was kind of, that was the appeal of it. All the other, obviously, real world implications of the business side and the marketing side and all the other side, I didn't even think about. But yeah, the president and founder of Aperture, Mark Griffiths, one day we were talking about, he's like, where do you want to go? What's next? And as I was rolling off of one of the projects, and I said, I'd really like to start my own thing. And he has this incubator called The Garage at Aperture, and they bring in small companies and they invest them and they do stuff. And I said, what if I pitched my own idea and tried to get something off the ground that way? And he's like, I'll do you one better. I already have this company that I brought in and I bought. Why don't you, basically go in there as like the guy and do all the things from the tech perspective? So it was almost like a kickstart, right? Of like jumping into a company that had been around for a while that was really on that just getting ready to take off type of moment. So that to be selfish, like I wouldn't have to deal with all of the things to get a business off the ground. It was already there and laid. So it was a nice just inflection moment. Is
I love
pretty
it.
nice.
A key takeaway for listeners is sometimes your next startup is hiding inside your current role.
That's right.
And I mean, so I love that you did that. I know that, as a CEO, and as I've had many, many companies, I always want the person that has the desire to do it on their own versus one who just wants to be an employee.
Sure.
There's a different mindset, there's a different drive, and I just love that. And we're in a crazy time. We've been in a crazy time in tech and the software development industry for the past 16, 18 months. It was looking better until tariffs took everything off the roof, and there's a lot of senior engineering leaders, VP of engineering, CTOs that are looking for jobs or their next opportunity. And so I love tips like this, and how you landed in your role. I love it. And I very much commend you for that.
Yeah, it's a forget the word. It's serendipitous, right? It was one of those moments of like things just kind of aligned all at once, and it was like, yeah, this is really really cool. Definitely props to Mark for giving me the opportunity because it's been great.
I'm a big believer that luck happens when preparation and opportunity meet. I'm a
Yeah.
big believer of that. You got to make your own luck, but you got to be ready for it. So, switching gears. So, as the CTO here in today's world, what's the biggest challenge you're facing?
Things are just moving fast, and they only seem to be moving faster, right? Which is kind of the thing we're caught in right now of can't sit and prototype for 2 years on a thing or do R&D for 2 years on a thing. We got to move. We got to get things out. I'm a huge fan and believer in anything agile manifesto, all that stuff. So for me, it's really about getting out there, doing something, getting feedback, and iterating on it. Make sure you're heading in the right direction. And so the thing I'm facing right now is we need to do that in a way that we don't lock ourselves into a corner too, some kind of vendor lock-in problem or other thing like along those lines. So making sure we're architecting things in the right way where we can back out of AWS and go over to Azure if need be. If we pick up OpenAI as the platform for our agents and we need to move that over, we want to run that on premise and use our own models and things along those lines. We want that ability to be able to do that. So architecture, one of the main things we're pushing on right now is just that flexibility and we can swap out components and things when we need to in the architecture. But then just getting that quick feedback. So we have a lot of clients that have a lot of really good ideas of the things they want to do. And we're hearing them and we're bringing all that stuff in and trying to find the right alignment of what we want to do. And I think even now, again, with AI, there's a lot of people thinking, well, just throw AI at it, just kick this feature out. And it doesn't
It
quite
doesn't
work.
quite work like that.
Yeah, exactly. Can't you just use AI? One of my trigger words at work is just. When somebody says, can't you just blah, 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 blah? And I'm like, you are boiling down like 3 months worth of work into one word, and I don't like that. So yeah,
Along
so I think
those lines,
yeah.
have you had your team, um, have you guys implemented any AI assisting tools around coding to help your team be more productive?
Yeah, great question. We've done a little bit kind of on both sides. We've done how do we get something just like a chat GPT into your normal workflow? So I use it a lot for like I'm gonna build a job posting. It's the first place I go, kind of like, stretch me out 90% of what I need to do. So that perspective, people have been doing quite a bit. One of our engineers on the integrations team was like trying to format, these different things for different integration files and stuff. And we started using ChatGPT and it, reduced the time by like 80%. The other side of it in the IDEs, some of the team is using a copilot of some sort. It's actually, I just put out a poll on Monday about, who's doing that and who's not, basically, because I want to start rolling out a copilot of some sort in everybody's workflow from multiple perspectives. I want to see, is it actually being as impactful as people say it can be in a lot of cases, but also like if it's not, if it has shortcomings, let's talk about those as well. Pretty much all the engineers on our team are all mostly senior people. Like they don't need an AI to write a for loop for them, right? They need something that's a little bit smarter. And when the new models are coming out and you can ask a more general question about a pattern or something like that, and it can give you a solid answer, that's impactful. And so yeah, we've been steering away a little bit from like the just use it to write the code, and more it's like, well, maybe how to write the tests behind the code. And
You don't just take your
yeah,
whole code base, dump it into the public
yeah,
chat GPT and say, make this better?
Exactly, exactly. I know at home I asked ChatGPT specifically, like, I'm doing this AWS project and I'm trying to use Amplify and I'm running into these problems. What can I do? And it would give an answer, and that was completely not the right answer at all, right? It thinks it knows what's going on. It's very confident that it does. But yeah, no, it's a great question. We're actively rolling stuff like that out right now.
Gotcha. All right. So a different question for you.
Yeah.
What is the worst advice you hear given to new CTOs?
First advice, something probably along the lines of you need to be the person with all of the answers. Like you have to have the answer all the time. Whereas I feel like in the real world, it's more about you need to know where to get the answer and like how to synthesize and get to I'd say the correct answer and not an answer. So you don't have to be the smartest person in the room necessarily, but you need to know where to get the information. You need to know how your processes work and who on your team are the experts in different things like that and how we can leverage team members, effectively and all those kind of things. So that when you get the question from the CEO about like, what are we doing in response to this? You need to know at a high level, of course, where we're trying to go. But if you want to get into the details, for me, it's always take a step back, take a breath. What's the actual question they're trying to get to? Let me go get you the real details rather than just kind of, I need to know right now because I'm the CTO. I need to know all the words right off the tip of my tongue. And it's like, you might misspeak or not really have all the up-to-date information because it literally might have changed 2 days ago. So I'm a big fan in using the process and the tools. So making sure I'm reviewing the tickets, and as those are changing, I'm getting notified and all that kind of stuff. So anything like kind of asynchronous process-wise for me helps to reduce that bottleneck of like, I need to be in a meeting to know a thing. It's like if I can just see the ticket or know that the ticket has changed, that gives me the same information and I don't have to be in a meeting to do it. So yeah, it really comes down to like you need to be the person that can synthesize all the things together and bridge that gap between like the business side and the tech side. But you don't have to have all the answers right at the tip of your brain all the time.
I think that is a great tip. And I think sometimes new CTOs feel like they always have to have the answer right away and sometimes don't have the humility to admit they're not the smartest person in the room. And that's not necessarily why you have that job.
Yeah,
You
right.
have the job to be able to lead, to be able to know where to find the answers. So great response.
Cool.
And great advice. Matthew, if people want to learn more about you or your company, where should they go?
That's a great question. DecisionLogic.co is our sales and marketing site. They can definitely go there. There's some blurbs about me on there if you want to go to the team history and all that good stuff. Definitely open to conversations about, again, what we're trying to do from the Decision Logic standpoint. If people who hear this are interested in the Avature side as well, and if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, I can definitely hook you up with the contracting side of things as well, if that's interesting to you. But yeah, we're trying to push really hard on the DL product and really try to change what people are trying to do in that vertical and how they do their day-to-day jobs, just reducing the stress from the manager perspective all the way up to the C-level folks, and just help them run their businesses efficiently, basically.
Fantastic. Matt, thanks for getting uncensored with us today. Can't wait to see what you build next. That's it for this episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Taplin. I built 30 companies, failed at 20, and won with 10. Every one of them was powered by custom software. Now I help others get software wins through Sonatified technology. We focus on how to get senior engineers and get stuff done. If you like what you heard, subscribe, share it. Just remember the builders will win. Everyone else is just posting. Thanks, everybody.